Welcome to the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable, where authors from all walks of life come together to discuss the trials, tribulations, and triumphs of publishing their books. I'm Alice Stockton Rossini. Join us here every Saturday night at 8 o'clock or listen to our podcast anytime on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, and PodServe, just to name a few. The Author Roundtable is sponsored by ReaderHouse Online Bookstore, where independent new authors come first. Terrence Pershall lives in one of the most beautiful places on earth, the Central California coast near Carmel and Monterey. It's no wonder he's inspired, but truth be told, writing has always been his passion. He's written a couple of books for Page Publishing under the umbrella of our ReaderHouse family, and today we're talking about The Soap Maker. So you have a couple of teachers to thank, don't you?
Well, my first two teachers inspired me, and then actually I've read since I was 10 years old. I started with the Hardy Boy books and Tom Swift and anything that triggered the imagination. You travel mentally, so through books, and
Right.
it was such a great thing. It was like so I've always read. I've been an avid reader, and then for years in Santa Cruz, I had some friends that were very, very tuned in to the literary world and turned me on to some really, really good authors. Before that I read, Steinbeck and Louis L'Amour, novels like that. And then I guess some of my bigger influences were Jim Harrison, James Lee Burke. I mean, if I could write like James Lee Burke, I'd be one of the happiest guys in the world.
Get in line.
Yeah. And Wilbur Smith, he tells some incredible adventure stories. I've read everything he's written, and plus all the other commercial writers and what have you. And I try to decide, well, do I want to really try to be the artistic writer like Burke or someone who tells a good story. I just decided that good stories are better, and good stories are always better than a good lecture.
Well, what finally made you pull the trigger and say, I'm going to publish a book and I'm going to write about this?
It was probably about 15 years ago. I just said, I had all these stories in my mind. I mean, I guess I can credit that to a good imagination through my childhood, and every time I saw a situation, I would make up a story, and I was a media major, so I saw a lot of movies in college and studied that and studied the anatomy of a story and how entertaining it was and how fulfilling some of these stories were. And it was the first three books. It was a trilogy that I wrote, and the first one was called Feet of the Nevis. And I kind of had the idea. I was walking with my little daughter, many, many years ago in Santa Cruz, and we're at the cliffside looking down at the ocean, and there were these rocks down there, these rock shelves where the surf was, crashing over and receding, and you could see the white water and all that. And there are two rocks that looked like feet. And so I kind of made up this story of, like this guy that, this bad guy that was, turned to stone whenever he came in contact with salt water, and that's what happened. And all that was left of him was his feet now, the footprints.
Oh.
And so I just developed a story from there. And, as you're right, everything takes on a life of its own. And so that turned into a trilogy: Feet of the Nevis, Sun's Journey, and Migration. And basically it was, just a fantasy. It was a story about a society or group of people who'd killed their planet, and a group of scientists and bright minds got together, and they built 10 spaceships and fired, sent them off they sent probes off into the universe and found a suitable planet that they could all migrate to, which was Earth. And that was my first three, before I wrote The Soap Maker. This is the fourth. Yeah, I'm working on my sixth. I've got another one I haven't sent into them yet.
Oh my gosh, you are something else. But you take a completely different turn. Now we're talking about World War II, and
oh yeah.
It sounds like historical fiction. Is that what The Soap Maker is?
It is. And I've always had this affinity for nice soap, and I was just thinking about in the shower one day. I went, but I could write a story about a guy that makes soap, and so I set it in France, for 1939, where the kid's 12 years old, and he and it takes him through his life basically, and he goes through the war years, and he's on a small farm in the south of France near the town of Toulouse and Saint Sulpice, and they farm, and they dairy and what have you. And he and his father Luke and his mother Lily, and Lily is this, and then the Nazis invade, and they form the two governments, the occupied northern France, and then the Vichy government in southern France, and it goes from there. And his mother gets killed by the Vichy, and then the father eventually gets killed. But he meets his grandfather is the soap maker, and he went through World War One, and then he meets when the Nazis fully occupy France, he's coming home from delivering soap, and what the grandfather started doing, he started working with the resistance and started passing messages in his bars of soap to the resistance workers. So he drilled little holes and slipped the messages inside the soap and wrapped them up. And he had Anton, the boy, the main character in the book, deliver these soaps to, as well as, everybody else. But he had special bars of soap he delivered to certain addresses where the resistance fighters lived. So.
Wow. There was a lot of that going on during the war.
Yeah.
Decoding messages, passing messages through all kinds of...
it was the safest way of doing it without really getting caught. And then he meets this young woman who's trying to flee France, or who the Nazis had killed her parents, and they were newspaper publishers in Paris, and he meets her one night when he's coming home from delivering soap, and he's out after curfew, and he almost got caught by the Germans, and she's hiding under a bush, and she calls to him, and he hides, and then he takes her back to the farm, and so they fall in love, and she's beautiful, and over the 4 years the ensuing 4 years, and then she is kidnapped by a Nazi major who's been stopping by the farm over the years to get supplies, and taken to Paris when the Allies invade. And then his father is killed at that time, and then his grandfather has a stroke and he dies, so he loses everything. But he meets, his grandfather's lady friend helps Anton, and it turns out that her son is one of the leaders of the resistance. He used to work with his father, so he ends up deciding to go to Paris to find her. And on the way, he goes through Bordeaux, and he gets hooked up with the resistance and becomes a resistance fighter, and then becomes attached to a Army Ranger unit up in Nantes. And then he's one of the first guys to go into Paris when the Allies invade and liberate Paris.
Wow.
And then his girlfriend, in the meantime, she was billeted with all the women that the Nazis keep for their entertainment, and she finds out she's pregnant. And then the woman that's in charge of helping her used to work for Coco Chanel, and so she kind of is like the madam there, and she takes care of all the girls. She escapes with Marie, the other main character, and she's part of the high fashion industry. So they flee to the coast, and there's an accident, and Marie's knocked out, and she ends up on a hospital ship on the way to New York with Cecile, her other friend, and she ends up in the high fashion industry in New York in the 50s and becomes a front page model. And then he ends up going over, after he can't find her in Paris, he thinks he's lost her forever. He ends up over in New Jersey with a sergeant or a lieutenant that he served under, who sponsors him to come over. And then he ends up in California going to Berkeley, and then ends up owning a nursery in Sonoma. And 10 years later, he sees a picture of Marie in a fashion spread in Life magazine and realizes it's her, and flies back to New York to try to find her, and she's in alcoholic rehab. And then and then she can't, so he leaves her a note, and she doesn't get it right away when she checks out 6 months later. And then the girl, the receptionist that had the letter, was on vacation. She takes a letter to Marie in New York after Marie's dried out, and Marie reads it and can't believe that it's Anton. And Anton's in his nursery one day, and someone knocks on the door. He goes to the door, and it's Marie. She goes up, she finds him.
I have chills, man.
And then the other element in this was the major, the Nazi major, ended up escaping through the rat lines through the Vatican and the church, ends up in Argentina, with the family money, owns a big estate. She runs into him at a cocktail party in New York because he's under another name. He's manufacturing clothes and stuff in Argentina for these New York businesses, and she sees him and she tries to get him arrested for war crimes, and he flees. So Anton ends up after he and Marie reconnect, and she ends up moving back there, and they get married, and so on and so forth. Anton contacts his two buddies from the resistance, and they end up going down to Chile and then driving over into Argentina. And there's a meeting twice a year where all these old Nazis get together up in a little town up in the Andes, and they end up, killing this Krauss, getting him. And then comes back. So,
did you do a lot of research for this book?
Yeah, I did. I researched for probably two months, and as I wrote, and as you write, things develop and your characters take on, and the storyline. I always outline my storylines, and then they always change. So
yeah, everybody tells me that. Everybody says the same thing.
They end up back in France. He ends up, he was making soap. His grandfather gave him his old notebook, giving him all his old soap recipes. And he decides he's going to start making soap at the nursery. So he does, and starts selling bars at the side, and then becomes very successful. And Marie has all the contacts for the fashion industry back in New York. So she goes back there, and it develops into a multi-million-dollar business. So that's how the book opens up. He's in his attorney's office, and he's selling his company for $250 million.
Wow.
So,
I love it, Terrence. Wow.
Yeah.
So now you are moving on, and you're going to keep writing. You have two more books now coming out.
I've got a Western I'm about 3/4 through right now. I'm writing. So
are you doing this just for fun? Like, do you try to market your books at all?
Well, I'm marketing a little bit. I'm starting to. Like I said, if I could make some money and a decent living, as I retire, it'd be great.
Right. I mean, you're a storyteller. I'm sure you're great, in front of a group of people, talking about your process and talking about your research and talking about how you came up with your characters, who they're based on. Like, you seem to be that kind of a guy.
Sometimes, yeah. Like I've always said, like a good story is better than a good lecture. I mean, my first 3 books really had a heavy message about the environment, overpopulation, and how we've, how people burn through the resources that they've been given,
right,
and use them foolishly. And but there's always a romantic element too in most of my books too. There's always relationships and romance. So I think that's important.
But do you go out and talk about them?
To tell you the truth, I just kind of had my head down trying to, start writing, all these stories out that are in my head,
Right.
The book I haven't submitted is called The Treasure of Joaquin, and it's about a 11-year-old boy who finds a buried treasure that Joaquin Murrieta buried in the foothills of outside of Monterey. I mean, the first 3 were like my launch into the literary world, and just, I said, okay, just you put it out there like any artist, you gotta put it out there. And I was happy enough with those 3, and the Soap Maker, I think, really was a giant step up as far as my writing and everything else. I learned a lot doing the first 3, and then this was the culmination of that. And yeah, so somebody asked me to speak at their book club after they finished reading the book, so I'll probably do that. And I really haven't started marketing. Like I said, I've been more
focused on writing.
On writing. Yeah, it's kind of a self-indulgent thing, but it's the art part of me that's more interested than the business part, I guess.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, well, that's true for a lot of artists, right?
I figure the business, if they're good enough, the business part will come along.
Yeah.
So I know how I find authors and stuff. There's one book I read of them that I really like. And then I'll go out and start buying the rest of their stuff, their book.
Right. Me too.
And so,
Yeah.
so Somebody will pick up one of my books and like it, and then they'll start buying the other stuff. So,
Right, Terrence, you're too much. Plus, you're still doing the real estate. You're not exactly.
well, I've got a property management company. We do very high-end vacation rentals for, we've dealt with a lot of, like Blake Shelton and Gwen Stefani and Kelly Clarkson and Meryl Streep and Nicole Kidman and, people like that
Nice.
come up, and they'll come up and rent these homes that we manage and get out of town. So
keeps you off the streets, right?
Oh, yeah.
All right. Well, listen, I really enjoyed this. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me. You're a good storyteller.
Thank you. You too. All righty.
Sarah Schulz writes manuscripts and other things while her son is in school and has only ever written for fun. So what made you take the leap and publish your first book, Found?
I don't really know. I think it was just a thing. Well, I originally came across this really, really tragic article in the news, and I wanted to give it a happy ending. And so I did. And yeah, I think I just took the leap to publish it just so that the story could have a happy ending.
What kind of stuff do you normally write?
Just everything.
Okay.
Everything.
So this one was a news story. What was the news story?
It had to do with human trafficking.
Oh.
Yeah.
In Wisconsin?
No. Oh goodness, I can't remember where the original story took place. But, after I saw that one, then, that one really grabbed my attention, then, you can't just stop seeing stories like that.
Yeah.
I mean, they're everywhere and it's really horrible. And yeah, I wanted to give them a happy ending. Because there's not enough happy endings. There's not enough success stories.
Yeah. So what's your story?
It's the hero of this story actually finds a girl in a really, really terrible situation, and he rescues her from it. And it's her struggle back to, mental health, and they end up falling in love, and so that's the happy ending.
It's like Pretty Woman with Julia Roberts.
Oh, right, yeah.
So, do you talk at all about trafficking, where this woman came from?
So, she traveled with her mother. Her mother was offered a job, and turns out it was at like this commune, and then she was stuck, and she just couldn't get away.
Her mother took a job at a commune.
Yeah. Well, mother was lied to about a job, and and then, of course, she was just a child, so she was stuck. She couldn't get away.
So they got into this commune. Is this the real part of the story?
No. Well, that was kind of a real part of another story that I read. Yeah, I changed a lot.
But those commune type situations, the mind control situations. Is that
right.
what you're talking? Yeah.
Yeah.
Does she somehow escape?
Well, the guy running this is he's just a con man. He's just your real slick, real slippery kind of guy who has everybody fooled. And the hero of the story kind of finds out about him and is trying to kind of stop what he's doing. And that's when he discovers what this guy is doing. And he sees the girl, and he just can't leave her there, to just continue being a victim. So he rescues her, and just kind of helps her back to life.
Is she young when he finds her?
Yeah, like mid-20s.
The name of your book is Found, One Dangerous Psychopath and More.
Well, that was the One Dangerous Psychopath and More was supposed to be the hook line on the back. So the title is Found.
Who's the one dangerous psychopath?
He would be the con man that
started this group.
Yeah.
Did you ever notice that the people who start these groups are always con men?
Yeah. Well, I think they'd have to be. I mean, the honest, upstanding guys really wouldn't do something like that anyways, right?
Right, I guess.
There's something about it. Like, I mean, going way back in, like, the Branch Davidian in Texas.
Yes.
He was
David Koresh.
He was that's his name. He was a real religious, I guess,
fanatic.
Yeah. There has to be something going on. I mean, I can't say that a lot of people that really have it together all the way would do that,
And yet we follow them.
Yeah, easily and a lot. Like, well, in his case, he had a Bible, right? And that's all he needed.
It's and your guy has a commune. Is there a religious component?
He uses it. Yeah. He uses it, and he twists things and turns things to, suit his needs.
Right. But when I think of human trafficking, I think of the women who pay to get out of a bad situation, like in China or in South America, and they're brought over on boats, and they're brought over, in the hulls of ships. They're hidden, and then they have to work at like nail salons or massage parlors, and they have to pay somebody that I guess feeds them and gives them a place to sleep, and they basically end up prostituting them. It's horrible. Yeah.
Right.
So where do you go from here?
I'm not done writing, I think. Now I'm kind of hooked. I like it. It's fun. So I think I'm just going to continue.
Did you have a good experience with your publisher?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I really did. The lady I worked with was absolutely fabulous. She made it so easy. So, yeah, I'm hooked. I'm just going to keep going.
You doing anything to market your book?
I'm so scared of that kind of thing. I've never done any of it before. I don't know where to start. I don't know who to talk to. I'm kind of shy about it. So you are honestly the first person I've actually told anything about my book. I haven't even told my family what it's about.
You haven't told your family about your book?
Well, they know that I have a book. They just don't know what it's about. I don't want to talk. I'm so scared of it. I'm not outgoing at all. So,
so standing up in front of a room full of people, not happening.
I can talk about other things in front of a room full of people, just not about my stuff.
Oh.
You know what I mean?
Maybe you should try it with a group of family and friends. Maybe you could talk about your process, your writing, being an author, getting your first book published, and then talking about what it's about. And, you go in front of, gather some friends and people who love you together. Don't just go out and, but I mean, people, right? Because spring is coming. A lot of people go to book fairs, and they go to like county fairs, and they get a table, and they set up their book, and people come by. Other people are more comfortable in a library situation, and they invite friends and family, and they just talk about the process and then maybe read a little bit from their book. But I mean, if you're really shy, and then there's also social media, right?
Right.
Facebook,
yeah.
Which you said you have a child. How old's your child?
He's 14.
Perfect. He knows how to use social media.
Yes.
Tell him you need him to help you get your book out there. You want it on Instagram, Facebook. You could like write a nice description, right? Then you're like on social media.
Right.
And then he can help you maybe find other author groups or other, there are other authors out there, that exchange ideas, and there's probably some in your community you don't even know about.
Probably, yeah.
That helps to go amongst people that have also written and might be shy and talk to them about what they're doing,
Yeah, it's just a matter of taking that first step.
I know, it's so scary, right? But what else are you doing?
What else? You're right.
What else are you doing? I mean, really. Your kid is 14. He's going to be gone in like 4 years. That's it. Going to college.
Yeah.
Right? What are you going to do then?
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your time.
You got it. And you enjoy the rest of your day.
You as well.
Angela J. Price took the day off from school to talk about her book, Dancing with Time. You're glad you took the day off, right?
I am. I'm getting writing done, so that's always a good thing. Yes, I do.
What do you teach?
I teach English.
Oh, of course you do. How old? How old are the kids?
They're high school. They're sophomores.
Oh, great. Okay, so that's good. I bet you get a lot of creative energy from them, don't you?
Sometimes. Sometimes. Depends on the day and sometimes hour with them.
Yeah.
But,
so have you been writing then all of your life, or?
I've always liked writing since I was young. I've always had an imaginative mind. But I probably really didn't sit down to start truly trying to write something until I could actually figure out how to write something decent.
So what made you decide to publish a book?
It's a dream. It was a dream come true for me. It was something I always wanted. That was the dream, to be a published author.
And how were you able to make it come true now and not before?
But this time it came to money, making sure I had the financial ability to make it go through the editing process and everything like that.
Did you have an idea you just had to get out of your head, or?
The idea was something that came to me when I was in the shower when I was in high school.
Okay. I take it that was a little while ago, or?
Yes, that was a little while ago.
In the shower.
In the shower. The best ideas come to me in the shower. What can I say?
You're relaxed, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I got the idea in the shower, and I immediately started working on it. And it was one of the first stories that I attempted that got through beyond chapter 4.
Oh, okay.
And so I wrote it for a while when I was in high school, and then I took a break from it.
Okay.
And then, of course, went to college, and I worked on other things. But then at 26, I circled right back around to this story, and I finished it. I just kind of had this idea about this girl, and probably because I was around the same age, I was the same age at her at the time.
Okay.
When I came up with that character, and the story just kind of morphed into its own. I wish I could say I planned it out and it was perfect and I had all of these ambitions with it, but the truth is that it kind of wrote itself. Well, and I just kind of let it write itself.
Tell me about this girl. Who is she? Her
name is Catherine, and she is a girl that has to go live with her uncle, whom she's never met before, and after her parents died. And upon her arrival, her world is turned upside down, and she slowly learns the haunting history of who she is and who her parents were.
Oh. Is there any connection to you in any way with this character?
No, I mean, I wouldn't say so. There are elements of things that she experiences maybe, or things that I like that she happens to like, but nothing that made it this is what I was going to write about. It was nothing that affected the writing itself or the story. So maybe her personality is like me, but that's probably as far as it goes.
Were the revelations shocking to her?
Yes. They are very shocking to her because she knows nothing about them. When she arrives, she starts being haunted by visions and nightmares about things that she didn't even know existed within the world.
Where did these visions and nightmares come from?
They're connected to her, but that's all I can say. Without
They're connected to her.
Yes. But that's all I can say without ruining anything.
Okay, so it's a mystery.
Yes.
And it involves her parents, any other family members?
Well, the only family member that's alive is her uncle.
So he knows everything, right?
Yes.
So I'm trying to figure out how we can add, some. I know you want people to read your book. You obviously you don't want to tell everything, but give me something that alludes to what we might find in your book. Does she stumble and fall? Does she find herself in a bad situation?
Well, like all high schoolers having to move, she has to navigate this new school. She has to navigate new people. And that's a really rough start for her. That is not something easy, especially when she realizes that who she is and who she's related to comes with perceived notions about her and her family.
So other people, like kids she's going to school with, maybe know more about her than she does?
Yes and no. But they know her last name. Her last name is a really big weight within this community.
A big weight. So what was her family known for something?
Yes, they are known for quite a bit. But again, that's something that is very ingrained into that mystery of this novel. And so I don't want to spill too much because
Can you at least tell me what kind of thing are they involved in? Is it like the mob, or is it they're rich, or?
Well, her family definitely has, or her uncle definitely has money. But it more comes down to some more sinister than that. A more sinister history of her family that she knew nothing about until she has to go live in this place with her uncle.
Do we wrap this all up in one book?
We do, actually, with a potential sequel, but the main who she is, and the world she lives in and what she finds out about that world and about her own family history, that major part gets kind of wrapped up within the first book. The sequel will dive into, now how does she really live within it now that she's come to terms with it.
Are you talking about your book?
Yes.
So when people ask you, what are you telling them about your book to get them interested in it? Why should they buy it?
Oh, you mean that way. Sorry. I mean, I mention it when some people ask. Right now, I'm just kind of trying to go through, I guess, this next steps, and I'm still trying to figure out where my next step lies within it. I mean, I do have an Instagram for it that also will eventually be updated with other information about other projects that I'm working on. But as for actually going out into the community, and so that hasn't really happened yet. But hopefully here locally this October, I'll be able to get the word out.
Well, can you tell me are there any other interesting characters in the book besides your main character? Is there anyone else you can tell me about that might be of interest? See, this is why I'm asking you. If you were to do an author talk, right? If you were to go out, or you were to go to a library and invite your friends and have them invite their friends, and you were to talk about the process of writing this book, the thing that hit you when you got into the shower, how you developed your characters, what would you tell them? Why should I read this book? It's a mystery that unfolds, but I don't know what kind of mystery.
Well, it would be a romance mystery if you're going to want to classify it a bit more.
Romance.
Yes,
we love romance.
It's a romance mystery though it starts off very, very, very rocky. Because when she's at school, she ends up meeting, this guy named Ryan. And they do not like each other at first. In fact, Ryan is very much anti her and anti her family, probably in every way possible. But he has his own reasons for that. And they end up having to work together. They end up having to
Where do they work together?
At school. They end
there-
up having to work at school together. And stuff. They actually get assigned as dance partners because that's a part of the school curriculum there.
The school curriculum is dance. Tell me
They
that you
have
went to
part
a
of it.
school.
One of the things there. One of the things at that particular school, it's their PE. So
I would love that as PE. I would love that so much more than baseball. Hated when they made us play softball. I would much rather dance. Do you actually do they have dance at your school?
No, they don't actually, not where I teach. But at the time when I was writing this, I had friends at my high school. My friends were involved in it, and that's probably where some of that inspiration came from.
Well,
I didn't participate.
I can see where a dance class could definitely kind of throw you together.
Yeah.
Right?
Especially when they didn't have a choice in the matter. And stuff. So that kind of forces them to have to talk to each other and communicate with each other, regardless of him not really wanting anything to do with her.
Okay, so she's able to rectify any preconceived notions he might have about her.
Not at first, because as she's, learning about who she is, and he kind of already knows a little bit about her family, but she doesn't know about it. There's that conflict, that dynamic. And the more you learn about her family, the more you realize why he doesn't like her. And so it builds that way.
This sounds like a great beach read. I want to take this book to the beach as soon as it gets warm. It's not very warm here yet.
Right.
Where are you? Where are you located?
I'm in Texas. So.
Oh. So they're going to the beach already down there, right?
Maybe farther south. I think the water would be a little bit chilly even for Texans at the moment.
Oh, a little chilly. Okay. Is it based in Texas? Is it based?
No, it's totally based in a fictional conceived world. I guess if you would have to place it somewhere based on the architecture within it, or how I describe the setting, you would probably base it over in Europe.
Europe?
Yeah, somewhere over there.
Oh, cobblestone streets.
Yeah.
Oh, I like that. Little romantic houses right next to each other. Do they have stoops or no stoops?
Well, she lives in a big, huge, castle, manor. So
like a castle? She lives in a castle? Oh my gosh. Oh my God.
At least that's where her uncle lives, and she ends up having to go live there.
Oh, bummer.
So
is it cold in the castle?
It doesn't have a lot of light.
Oh. Well, that would leave its, that would make me think depression right there.
And stuff. Well, that's her first notion of it when she is pulled up in a private car up to the manor. It's huge and big, but it has not been necessarily well kept.
Okay. Does she have duties she has to perform? Does she have to go to private dinner parties or entertain with her uncle's friends or something?
No, that's something you realize really quickly about her and her uncle's dynamic is it's not good.
Oh.
It's one of those things. She had to go there. She had nowhere else to go. And he was the only family member alive type situation.
Is it the dad's brother or the mom's brother?
Dad's.
Okay. All right. I feel like I'm pulling teeth here, but I want people to read your book. And I want people to know, what is there a lesson? Is there something, a moral to the story?
I think it's more about her coming to terms with, okay, this is what it is, and I have to accept it. She has to learn that there's nothing she can do to change what's happened or what her family's done, and she has to learn this is part of who I am. And now that I've learned about it and come to terms with it, where do I go from here? And that would be more of the sequel type thing.
Okay. So that's good. It sounds like she has a very interesting, multifaceted life.
She does. But it's hard. It's not like a great, feel good fairy tale type stuff for her, even though there's very picturesque type setting. She has, I guess it's a darkness there with her, and then trying to navigate this darkness that she ends up finding herself involved in.
Okay. What's dancing with time mean?
Dancing with Time is a play on one because of her dancing, and the time is a reference to her figuring out her history.
All right. Angela, so nice
Yes.
to meet you. So nice to talk to you.
Well, thank you for talking with me. I appreciate
All
it.
right. You have a great day, okay?
You too.
Rachel Bryan has written a number of poems and stories over the years, but never finished one until she wrote Ingredients for a Superhero Recipe. So why is that, do you think?
This one, I just woke up in the middle of the night at like 3:30 in the morning, and I started writing it, and I finished at like 5:45, and I was like, what did I just do? And I knew that I had written something I really liked.
Do you have children?
I do.
I was going to say, this looks like, when I'm reading about the book, I was like, oh, this book was written by a grandmother or a mom or someone.
Yes.
Someone.
Yes, I have 2 little boys, and I know it sounds really cliche, but God really gave me this book.
Why do you say that?
Because it was because the moral of this book was something that really touched for me, and showing that everything I need is right inside of me, and it was very special to me to write this book for myself and for my kids.
How old are your kids?
I have a 12-year-old and a 9-year-old.
And they're both boys?
They're both boys.
Oh, I had boys too. Aren't they the best?
They are the best.
Love my
They're
boys.
easy.
Yeah. So what's the book about? Tell me about the book.
The book is about a boy who wakes up and he has this bright idea about wanting to be a superhero. And he comes up with all these ingredients that he thinks he's going to be able to find. And he goes out on his journey to go find all these ingredients. And it's ridiculous things, 3 cups of mighty strength, tablespoon of flying potion. And he goes out and he wants to go find all these. And he goes on his journey, and he's left very disappointed because at the end of the day, he has not found any of what he needs because it's not things that you can find. And when he gets to the end of his day, his grandfather tells him, "Why are you so blue? Everything you need is right inside of you." And it's about kindness, the best superpower on this planet, and that being kind is your biggest superpower that you have. And it's a good reminder for, as the parent reads it to the child, as the teacher reads it to the student, as a counselor reads it to their client. Everybody can take something away from this book. I don't feel that it's just for the children. I feel like it's for everybody. A good reminder that everything you need is right inside of you.
Oh, I love that. When you first read this, it's like ingredients for a superhero recipe. So you think it's something that you eat.
Yeah.
But it's not.
Yes. No, it's not. And it's interesting because it's just like each one of us. We're out here searching for things outside of ourselves, and we will be left disappointed. And because there's everything that you're looking for is not outside of you, but rather inside of you.
Right.
I feel like everybody has this want to be a superhero. And at some point in their life, I feel like I hit 80% of the audience with superhero. It's classic. It never dies.
Right.
It's, everybody wants to be a superhero, especially children. You hear superhero and you're like, I want to be a superhero.
Right.
And it's like, well, what does being a superhero truly mean?
Right. What's his list of ingredients?
3 cups of mighty strength, a tablespoon of flying potion, a large dash of good looks, and a sprinkle of mind reader.
and he's thinking there's something missing.
Well, no, he's thinking that's all that he needs. He, and that they're tangible. He thinks they're tangible, and he goes out searching for these and is left disappointed because he doesn't find any of them. Because as he's on this journey, he doesn't realize that he's coming across all these different things. As he's searching for that, he doesn't realize that he's helping everybody else as he's on his journey looking for all of those things. He comes across, different people, little Sally, and who needs a hug, and comes across his little brother who has a wagon all tumped over and needs help and is crying, and comes across 2 pups that are bickering, and his mother who needs help with their dishes, and he helps each one of them.
So at the end of the book, he realizes he has everything he needs.
That's right.
Does that mean there's going to be more books?
I hope so.
Yeah?
I haven't really gotten on that yet, but I'm trying to allow it to flow to me easily because, just like I said, that one I had put effort into other books, and they didn't ever have that it factor. They didn't come to me as easily. But this one just came right to me when I wasn't trying for it. And
What'd your boys think?
oh, they're so proud of it. My son comes home from school all the time. Mom, we're ready. I'm ready to take your book to school, and I have been asked by their schools and several other ones to come and read. And so that's pretty exciting now to get to go to the Head Start program here next week, and they have set up a curriculum for the students to. They're all going to receive superhero certificates when I show up, and she bought them all capes and mask and the book, so that's pretty fun.
That is so great.
Yeah, it really is.
Look what you've done.
I know, it's very exciting.
I bet you can't wait to read in front of these kids.
No, I can't. It is very exciting, especially to these kids, especially to the small ones. I don't know, though. I mean, like I said, even though the target audience, I guess, would be more elementary, every student that I've ever read it to, even up to 17, they sit there and they listen to the whole book from beginning to end.
That's great.
And so I know that it's more than just elementary that's interested in it.
Right. And now you got the summer ahead. Good summer reading book, right?
Yeah. I was invited to a conference in Little Rock that's going to be held about 500 people here at the end of April. So that'll be exciting.
You were invited?
Yeah.
Why?
It was a friend that I went to high school with. His wife wrote me a message, and it's every librarian in the state of Arkansas will be there.
I mean, this book is just taking you to places you never thought you'd go.
That's right.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's very exciting.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if you wake up with another idea real soon.
I know, me too.
Right.
Yeah, I'm trying not to force it, but I am kind of getting anxious. I'm trying to be patient.
Okay. Listen, thank you so much, Rachel. What a pleasure talking to you.
Yes, thank you so much.
Do you know how many people I talk to and they're like, I don't know what to do. I've got to market my book. I don't know anything about social media. I don't have a great personality. I'm shy. And here you are, you write this book, and the next thing you know, your kid takes it to school. And the next thing you know, you're invited to read it to his class. And now you're going to be in front of several hundred librarians. I mean, it's
That's
almost
right.
like it's almost like if it's meant to be, it really does happen.
It really does. And if it's meant, and you can't stop it. If it is meant for you, it will be for you.
Yeah.
You know?
Nice, Rachel. Nice thought to leave everybody with.
Thank you.
You have a great day.
You too. Thanks.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
We hope you enjoyed this edition of the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable, where authors from all walks of life come together to discuss the trials, tribulations, and triumphs of publishing their books. I'm Alice Stockton Rossini. We hope to see you back here every Saturday night at 8 o'clock, or listen to our podcast anytime on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, and PodServe, just to name a few. The Author Roundtable is sponsored by ReaderHouse Online Bookstore, where independent new authors come first.